Good evening, everyone. Good evening. As Dr. White said, my name is Deetria Moore, and I'm going to get a little bit into myself and who I am and give you a little bit of bio about myself a little bit later. I did just want to kind of start us off real quick, and I'm going to come on camera just here just so that you have the opportunity to kind of put a face with the name. I have a dim office, so sometimes that glare right behind me can be a little bit intimidating, I know, a little bit bright there. But I want to kind of start us off with a survey just because I want to kind of take a little bit of a pulse check, see how everyone is feeling about tonight's presentation. So I am going to launch this survey here, and hopefully you are able to see that, and we'll start seeing some votes kind of come in. But I want to kind of know, it's a Tuesday. First of all, it's a Tuesday evening, and it's a Tuesday evening after a holiday that many of you might have been off. So I just kind of want to see, how is everybody feeling? How are you feeling today? Are you kind of enthusiastic about being here? Are you kind of excited, but just a little tired? Are you like, I don't even know what this is. I just heard there would be food and I was coming, and not that we have food, because we don't, but I just kind of want to know, how's everybody feeling about that? And then simultaneously as well, just to kind of get some demographic information about who's joining us tonight. So love to see, do we have mainly students, some faculty, males, females? Do we know our leadership styles? Do we not know our leadership styles? So just take a minute there to kind of vote. I see some votes coming in, and then I will post them, and this will kind of give us an idea about who all is joining us tonight, and then that might, shift the direction that we go a little bit. But I see some of the votes coming in, so I'm going to leave that up just to kind of see what we're looking at here. And let me go ahead and start sharing these results as well. I think you all should be able to see. Well, it looks like you can only see one at a time. That's all right. I'll shift it back so that we can kind of see how we're looking. Okay, so far for the first question, let's go ahead and share that one. It looks like we're kind of excited to be here, but it's tired. I get it. If you are like me on the East Coast, 8 p.m., it might be a little bit later for you, but I'm hopeful that we'll be going over some exciting content that even if you are tired, that you will at least be inspired. Okay, so far that's kind of where we are, and only 2% of you are like, okay, what is this? I heard there would be food. No food. I'm so sorry to say that. Yes, Janae, me as well. I am with you. All right, let's look at the other poll here just to kind of see what most of us are. So it looks like definitely the majority of us are, or majority of you, I should say, are students. We have got a lot of females, but some males here as well, and that's absolutely fine. I just wanted to really kind of get some direction to know how many fall into these different categories here. So some of you are already in leadership roles, which is great. And some know their positions, but then some do not, or some know their leadership styles. Many do not, and that is absolutely fine as well. Thank you. Thank you for, okay, and even some new students who haven't even started yet. Great. Well, we're glad to have you, Anne. Glad to have you at WGU. I wish I could say that I would have the opportunity to work with you, but I'm not in the College of IT. I am in the School of Business, but you're going to love it here at WGU. And thank you for that comment, because I should have thought about the fact that there might be some alumni here. So next time I will remember that. Thank you. Thank you. I am glad that you all are here. I'm going to go ahead and close out this poll. Thank you for taking the time to fill that out. I'm going to go ahead and bring up our presentation that we're going to use today. If you see me looking off to the side like this a little bit, it's because I am working with two videos or two screens here, and just have to make sure I'm getting the right screen up for us to follow today. And I think we are set here. Okay. We move this out of the way, and then we will get started. So, really quickly, just to kind of give you a bit of a quick introduction about me. As Dr. White said, my name is Deetria Moore. I am a senior instructor in the School of Business. I live in Virginia with my husband and two kids who you see there. This is a recent picture of us. I don't normally, I'm not always able to get pictures of us together, and certainly not color coordinated at the same time. So this was a win-win for me here. But this was us at church on Christmas Eve. I've got my two kids, my husband there. We are active in our ministry. My husband pastors there. My son is a senior in college. He is getting ready to graduate with his degree in violin performance. My daughter is actually a student here at WGU. She is in the marketing program. And so we are just a family of four in Virginia, well, Virginia slash Georgia, because that's where my son is in school at. But I'm just someone who is passionate really about helping women be all that they can be, the movers and the shakers that they were created to be. And so that's why I'm here joining you today to talk about leadership and to talk about where you're going and to talk about your leadership style. So even though I'm not in tech, I know that I am surrounded by women who are strong, who are powerful, and even if you're here and you're not a woman, you are here because you are supporting women in leadership, and that is still a like-minded individual that I am glad to be around as well. So this is just a little bit about me. Now let's kind of talk about where we're going tonight. What is it that we are going to focus on? So our agenda for tonight, we're going to spend some time talking about women in leadership. We're going to talk about why it's important that we put women in leadership positions. We're going to talk a little bit about the barriers that keep women from leadership positions and how to overcome them. But then we're going to shift a little bit, and I want to shift into helping you either discover or work on your particular leadership style. So we're going to take an assessment, and we're going to take a look at where you are with your leadership style, and then we're going to discuss all the different options and different leadership styles, and we'll just maybe have some discussion if time allows. I hope that sounds good. Now, as we go throughout all of this, it is definitely going to be focused on women and women in leadership roles. But I want to be clear about what this presentation is not about. It is not about trying to elevate any one particular gender over another. It is certainly not about bashing another gender, but it is talking about the inherent good qualities in women that sometimes get overlooked that we could in corporate America and even other settings do a better job about elevating. So regardless of your position or where you're coming from here tonight, know that we are not here at all to say that one is better than the other. We're not here to bash anyone, nothing like that, but we're really here to just sort of uplift and empower women who might have been overlooked a little bit in some of these leadership things. So that's where we're going tonight. And that's what we're going to kind of dive into at any time. At any time throughout tonight's presentation, that if you have a question about anything, I know I have a tendency to talk fast. So if you need to tell me, hey, can you slow it down just a little bit? I will be more than happy to oblige. Let me actually go ahead and get the chat up as well, so then I could see you when you say, you're going just a little bit too fast, and I will be sure to make sure to slow down. Okay. I will see. I'm seeing the chat now. See, I didn't even see all this. I will provide you my LinkedIn. Absolutely. Try not to forget. So thank you. We'll definitely do that. Okay. So let's kind of start with this definition of leadership style. What do we mean when we talk about a leadership style, and why is this even important? Well, when we talk about leadership style, we are talking about your inherent ability to motivate people, to lead people, to work with people who are within your sphere of influence, and to motivate them to do some sort of action or to do some sort of work. How you go about bringing out productivity in people is your leadership style. And everyone has an inherent way that maybe kind of comes natural to them, but keep in mind that this is not something that's just static and stays the same. This is pretty fluid, right? We will and should always be working to improve our leadership style. And so that's just sort of a very basic definition of what it is. So when we talk about knowing your leadership style, this is what we're kind of referring to. How is it that you motivate people to get them to do work? Simply put. Okay, so that's what we're kind of talking about when we mean leadership style, when we talk about it. But now let's kind of talk about why it's important that you, especially, again, I know who my audience is now, just kind of talking to the ladies a little bit here, but why is it important that you know your leadership style, and why is it important that we have ladies and women working in leadership positions? Well, here's the thing. I know some of you filled out in that poll that you're already working in a leadership capacity, and that's great. Even if your title or your role at work is not necessarily one of a people leader, you at some point in your career are going to be a leader. You will. You're going to either lead people, or you're going to be leading projects, or you're going to be leading tasks. You might be leading your family. You're going to be leading something, right? But just in the career setting, you're going to be a leader probably at some point. And so the people who are within your sphere of influence that you are responsible for leading, whatever that might look like, you are leading them. And you knowing your leadership skill and knowing what it is and knowing how to navigate leading a team with that is going to be vital. It's going to help you be a more effective leader just by knowing your leadership skill or your leadership style, and knowing how to really use that for the benefit of your team. So it's important that you know it just for your own personal development, but then it's also important for your team. It's important because it's going to help you be a better leader. And this is what we know. We know that when organizations put women in leadership positions, that organization benefits tremendously, especially when we have effective women leaders. The organization just benefits greatly. So there's a huge benefit to this. There's a study that was done by the McKinsey and Company that found out that companies who are in the top quartile for gender diversity, meaning that at their top leadership levels, they're in the top quartile for having female leaders or a diverse gender diversity on their executive team. Those companies were 21% more likely to outperform on profitability than companies that didn't. So we've seen many studies that show that there is sort of this correlation between a company's diversity at their executive level and their management level and their profitability. So diversity and profitability can go hand in hand, right? Unfortunately, though, the reverse can also be true. It can also be true that those companies that don't have gender diversity at their level, at the executive and leadership levels, might not do as well. So that's the first thing, right? And that's a pretty big, important thing, that there is this correlation between having women in leaderships and leadership positions and having a profitable company. This is true even at the board level. Those companies that had a more diverse board of directors tended to have better stock performance than someone who maybe just had an all-male board of directors. So there's definitely this correlation here. And so this is a huge benefit for why we want and need women in leadership, especially in fields that are maybe predominantly, male dominated. My background is in law. I have a law degree. And so the law still remains, a heavily male dominated industry, definitely more women, in that field. But when you're working in a field that is predominantly, male, we start to see a lot of improvements and strides with business when we see women being able to hold key leadership positions. Okay. Another benefit to this, and another reason for why it's important, is because having women decision makers helps serve women stakeholders in general, regardless of who the stakeholders are. Having women in key leadership positions, helps better serve all female stakeholders. So whether you're talking about your female consumers, when they see women in these key leadership positions, it helps the consumers. Consumers are obviously what drives, the profitability, help to drive the profitability of a company. So it improves that. It improves other female employees, right? When other female employees see women within the company being elevated and being taken seriously, that improves that particular stakeholder group as well. It also just helps with recognition and perception overall. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later, but these are all some really good reasons of why it's important that we should have women holding key leadership positions. Just having a diverse background in general leads to innovation. If everybody looks the same, believes the same, has the same background, you're not getting a whole lot of creativity. You're not getting a whole lot of innovation. But having a diverse board, having a diverse C-suite or executive team, that leads to an innovation with ideas, and that really still just helps to drive a business. And then simply put, it's just simply the right thing to do, right? It is just the right thing to do. When you think about the fact that women make up 1/2 of the workforce, it just makes sense that that same sort of representation should be seen at all levels of employment. If women are 1/2 of the workforce, some might even say a little bit more, but if women are at least at 1/2 of the workforce, I would want to see that same representation at different levels of management and at different levels of executive leadership. So these are all the benefits for why it is important that organizations really, really employ and have women as effective leaders. Now, we've talked about why it's important, but we also have to acknowledge the fact that there are still barriers. There's barriers to women in leadership. And so we're going to really quickly just kind of take a look at a few of these different barriers to kind of understand it. So one, just looking at statistics, right? Some probably discouraging, let me say that word, discouraging statistics here. In general, most people are going to agree that women and men equally make good leaders. There's not a lot of people that's going to say, no, inherently women just don't make as good a leaders as men. No one really says that, at least not out loud. But nobody really says that, right? So if we all agree that women and men equally make good leaders, if that's the case, then why do women remain underrepresented in leadership fields, right? So we see this sort of statistic here. This comes from the AAUW. They actually took this from some research that I'm going to kind of share here today with the Pew research that was done some time ago. 6.6% or 34, only 34 of Fortune 500 companies have women at the helm. 25.5, roughly a quarter of women who sit on board seats of these Fortune 500 companies. 11% who have top jobs in the S&P 1500, and again, another quarter or so roughly who have C-suite jobs. This, in and of itself, can be a little discouraging. I think it's even a little bit more discouraging when we see that companies really have been able to try to make strides in this area. They really have. This is what we're looking at when we know that companies have invested in things like training programs for women, mentorship programs, connection programs. Like, companies are trying. They are trying to bridge this gap. They are trying to, to put women in positions here. And so they're getting a little bit frustrated. Maybe even a little bit confused when they see that they're investing monies to mentor women, to train them. They're giving resources and incentives to help put women in these positions in hopes of trying to advance women in leadership. And again, some strides have been made. We're certainly not where we were, but I don't know that anyone really agrees that we're at the place that we thought we would have been with all of the resources that we've put there. So you look at this and it's kind of like, oh, what are we to do? Here's just another kind of infographic, and this one kind of tells some possible thoughts about why we're here. Why is it that we're here? This comes from that Pew Research where they got their first information or data from that first slide there. And it's why aren't more women in, and they listed several different things. I just kind of captured the top executive positions. They were looking at a lot of different things like women in higher ed or women in politics. We just kind of wanted us to focus a little bit here. So these are some thought processes that people answered for why maybe women aren't in the positions that they should be in or that they could be in. And so the dark green bar that you're seeing there represents what some people feel is maybe the major reason, or when they saw this thought process, they thought that, yeah, this could be a major reason. The middle one is kind of more of a, well, maybe it's a reason, but it's not a main one, it's a minor one. And then the lighter color says, I don't consider that to be a reason at all. So if you have this thought process that women are just held to a higher, or I'm going to say different, kind of look at the research, I think different is more of a better word. But if you think that women are held to a higher or different standard, you can see that 43% felt that that was a major reason for why women just are not in the leadership positions that they could be in. 22 said, well, maybe it's a reason, but it's a minor reason. And 33 felt like, I don't think it's a reason at all. Similarly, you can see that when it came to the thought about businesses just not being ready to hire women for top executive positions, it was almost very similar, right? 43% kind of feeling like, yeah, that's a major reason, a major thought process that many businesses just are not. They're just not there yet where they're ready to hire. And similarly, 24% feeling like, oh, maybe it's a reason, but not quite the main reason. And 31 feeling like, I don't think it's a reason at all. And you can see as you kind of go through these different reasons, the makeup of who considers it more of a major reason and who, maybe does not, the numbers there. Interestingly enough, this third one regarding family responsibilities, I kind of consider this a mixed bag because there's so much research in studies that really kind of conflict. I think before COVID, we were seeing this on the decline where we were not really looking at the whole, family responsibility as being a major contributor. Since COVID, though, it'll be interesting to see the numbers that continue to come out. But you can see it ranges from women not having access to connections. And when you get down to the bottom, you see that, this idea that women just don't make as good managers as men is not something that the majority of people hold on to. You can see that 77% of them felt like that is not it, that's not it. So that's good to see, right? That is good to see that we don't see that. But let's kind of deal with this first one here. Women are held to a higher standard, or again, I'm going to say a different standard. I think this plays a really big part. And here is the double standard for women that we often see. It's a double standard because it kind of envelops our stereotypes that we have, right? We will look at a man who is in a leadership position, and if that man is assertive, that's good, right? We kind of applaud that. That's just a quality we want to see in a man who's leading. But if that same woman, or if that woman, exhibits that same quality, instead of being seen as assertive, maybe she's seen as aggressive. And that's not as positive. That doesn't get rewarded, right? That's kind of seen as a negative, right? Exactly. Or even angry. A man can exhibit qualities that we will look at in a leader and say he is direct. But we'll see those same qualities in a woman and say she's being shrill. If it's a man who's taking charge, he's commanding, and that's good. But for women who might be exhibiting the same behavior, they're seen as pushy, not quite as positive, right? Pretty negative. A man can be strong in leadership and can be powerful in leading his company, and that's good. But if a woman exhibits those same qualities, it's domineering. So it's this bit of a double standard that we have here, and a lot of it, whether we really want to admit it or not, it just kind of plays into the biases that we have, right? So these are the barriers that kind of keep there, and there's more, right? There's lots more. Um, I think the fact that sometimes we are a multi-generational workplace, our workplace now is more multi-generational than it's ever been, right? We have the lost generation, the baby boomers, the Gen X, Y, Zers. I can't keep up with it all sometimes. The millennials, we're all working together in the same office space, right? And so we bring with us all of our thought processes and how we see and view male and female leaders and roles and the cultures that we, all bring. And so all of those things could play a part in it. So these are not exhaustive at all. This is just sort of some of the things. But that could be another thing there that we see as well. People just have different cultural understandings about the roles of men and women. That can play a part in it. But we know it's a benefit, right? We've talked about the research. We know it's a benefit. So how do we move beyond these barriers? How do we overcome some of these negative things that we've talked about in order to level out this playing field a little bit? So how are we breaking through? One, help other people see women as leaders. This is something that I think all of our workplaces can do and can do a better job at. Help everyone in your organization see and respect women as leaders. It's not enough for companies to simply put resources in investing in the skills for women. It's not enough to have the mentor, training, all of those sort of training and mentorship programs for women. They're good, but it's not enough. You can do all of that. You can put money behind all of that. If you don't, however, change the cultural mindset of the people within your organization and how they perceive women in leadership, is that woman going to really be respectful? If she's not respected as a leader because other people have, elevated her and given her the respect as a leader in that position, then not a lot's going to really get done, right? There has to be, as this one sort of Harvard Business Review article called it, there has to be a fundamental identity shift. We're going to have to fundamentally shift how we and who we identify with as leaders. That kind of needs to take place so that when a woman is put in a leadership position, that she's rightfully earned, that there's a respect that comes along with that, okay? Some practical ways that we can break through to this. Conduct regular pay audits. That might seem so foreign to businesses and corporations, but does anyone ever just sit down and take a look at the pay audit to see if the women are getting paid as much as the men who are doing the same job? Like, just sit down and do a pay audit. Take a look and see if something somewhere needs to change, if there needs to be sort of any elevation, right? Kind of going along hand in hand with that is the idea of abandoning the use of salary histories. Now, you just kind of type in the chat. I'd love to kind of get your thoughts on this. Why should companies abandon the use of salary histories? Taking a look at, the previous salary histories of people. Why is that maybe not a good thing to do? Just what are your thoughts there? You can kind of type right in the chat. Why should we not be looking at salary histories? Why should we just kick that to the curb? Any thoughts there? Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I think you guys got it, right? Women historically have always had lower salaries than men. If we continue the use of salary histories, you're absolutely right. We're just sort of perpetuating the pay gap that already exists, right? Is it really fair if we already know that it's, there is not that sort of equity and equality there, right? And if you're always looking at salary history, I like some of these answers, absolutely, then you're not really kind of forward thinking, right? You're not really looking at the productivity and results that are maybe happening now. So it doesn't allow for growth. So yeah, you guys got it. Really good answers here. It just maintains. Absolutely. It just maintains that imbalance for what we already know is inadequacy. inadequacy. So absolutely, absolutely there. So conducting the pay audit, abandoning the use of the salary history. And these last two are ones that are kind of personal favorites of mine. I really like. Allow workplace flexibility for both men and women. This is going to do two things. When a company allows for more workplace flexibility, more ability to have work-life balance, it does two things. One, it helps the employees overall, because when people have a better work-life balance or a sense of work-life balance, you get a better overall employee, right? So for everyone, it benefits, because employees are just better employees when they're able to manage work and life and they have that balance. The second thing that it does, though, is it helps with the perpetuation that women solely are responsible for maintaining the home. When you allow men just as much time off, when you allow them the ability to take time off, it kind of starts to erode that perpetuation or misconception that women alone, women solely, or women primarily are responsible for maintaining the home, that they're primarily responsible for the caregiving. And so allowing more workplace flexibility helps to see that we can both work and we can both equally have some responsibility, for maintaining our home. And so I think it kind of does both of those when you allow for that workplace flexibility. Then my all-time favorite here at the end is embracing emotional intelligence in the workplace. Over in the School of Business, if you ever come over to that side of the house and join us, there's a course that I support that is called Emotional and Cultural Intelligence in the Workplace. Now, listen, historically, we kind of thought of these as soft skills. We sort of thought of these as, not really key to leadership, but we now know that this is a very good, solid indicator of overall leadership experience. When we talk about emotional intelligence, we're talking about your ability to kind of know yourself, to have an awareness of yourself, but to also know how that impacts your team, and then the ability to know how that relates to the relationships that you have, even at work, right? So this is really important, because this is something that women tend to be a little bit more adept at. It's not saying that men don't engage in emotional intelligence. They absolutely do. But this is something that just often comes a little bit more inherently to women. And it's a skill that we're starting to see leads to overall leadership success. The first women who were sort of pioneering as executives at some of these Fortune 500 companies, most often had to emulate their male counterparts. So they behaved in a way that was similar to their male counterparts. But again, we've seen what happens, right? How women are kind of seen as pushy, or you're not assertive, but you're aggressive. We kind of seen how all of that looks and sort of plays a part, right? Are you really being true to your authentic self if that's not who you are? What we know now is that there are many paths to having a successful leader. And it might not always look like how the traditional male role has maybe exhibited leadership, right? Women are now able to draw on skills that maybe historically were seen as weak, or were maybe historically seen as too feminine and just inappropriate for leadership. Now, women who inherently have some of these qualities can engage in these things and still be successful leaders, right? So when you show levels of empathy for people on your team, that doesn't make you soft. That could be a really good, solid key to building a team that can work together and can confer and further the advancements of that team or that company and organization. So this new generation of female executives can really draw on what's unique to them as women and experiences that we have. And so the ideal image of what leadership looks like is changing. And so when we start embracing emotional intelligence, and the studies there, the science there to already kind of back that up, when we start embracing that more and not looking at it as something that's weak, but something that has been proven to be vital for overall company success, then I think that's going to be a win for women, because again, that's just something that for most women, and I'm sweeping with a really broad brush here, but for most women, it's inherent and it's a plus for us. Okay. All right. I'm going to kind of pause here because we're going to shift gears a little bit. Any questions about anything that we have covered so far? All right. I appreciate the active chat. I love it, and all the different backgrounds. All right. Well, we're going to shift gears here a little bit because now I want to focus on how we can help you with your leadership style. So I'm going to place this link in the chat. And this is a link to a quick leadership style assessment. Oops, I am copying too much here. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna place this here in the chat. This is a safe site to go to, all right? It's safe there. It is a site that is in Australia. It's a leadership site from Australia, but it's safe, trust me. So when you go there, they're gonna kind of have like a quick sort of paragraph in the beginning, but scroll down to where you get to the quiz. You'll see a big red button that says Start Quiz. When you click on Start Quiz, it's gonna just ask you a series of like 10 questions. And so I'm gonna give you about 7 or 8 minutes to kind of go through and read through those questions and select the answer that is most applicable to you. Now, a few things to keep in mind as you're going through that assessment. Because it's in Australia, you might notice that there are a few words that are maybe spelled a little differently, you know, an S instead of a Z in certain places, but you'll be able to make that out, no problem. For some of the questions, you're given a lot of different options to choose from, so you might need to scroll down to make sure that you are seeing all the different options that are available for you to answer for that particular question, okay? You might come across a phrase in there. Some people will probably know what it is, most is, some will not. Just in case, if you get a question and it comes across and it asks you about KPIs, they don't spell it out for you, but when you see it, KPI, that just stands for Key Performance Indicator. So that is, you know, what sort of measuring sticks are being used to sort of measure success. So that's what that means if you get to that and you're just a little unsure. But I'm just going to give you, about 6 or 7 minutes, answer those questions. When you come back in the chat, or when you come back, maybe just kind of give a round of applause chat. That way I know that people are coming back in. Then we're going to talk about these a little bit, okay? So I'm going to give you that time to go through and answer those. And now I'll put this in the chat again, just in case. Then I'm going to hush up while you guys take your assessment. Going to check in real quick. How is everyone doing? How are we looking with the quiz? Still working? Gotcha. Okay. Okay, got it. Well, if you're wrapping it up, definitely continue wrapping it up. I'm going to launch this quick poll right quick. I want to see just, it's all obviously anonymous. No one's going to know, but just kind of want to see where is everyone? How did we fare on the quiz? So kind of see what we have mostly here. See some votes coming in. Interesting as these are coming in. I'm going to leave this open just to kind of see how things are kind of planning out, especially as people are wrapping it up. So you can continue voting, but I'm going to want to kind of review a little bit, even if you only had the opportunity to just read through your particular leadership style, just to kind of cover the other leadership styles. And I just have to say, these are not all the leadership styles. You probably have seen others that are not on this list, or maybe some are on this list that you've never heard of. Like, there's no exhaustive list, I think, at this point. There's so many different groupings and types of leadership styles. So we're just kind of covering, what I kind of see are like the main 7 types of leadership styles. And it looks like I see a lot of us here kind of have the same leadership style, which is not a bad thing. I think it's interesting that we kind of all have this a lot of us, I should say, have the good or the same leadership style here. As we talk about this, I do want you to know there's no right or wrong answer here, right? There's not one. I mean, some might say there's one, but there's no right or wrong leadership style, right? This is really just about a starting point. Number one, it's all about awareness. Which style do you inherently have? And then where do you know to go from, right? So that's really all it's about. Don't think that you've got, the bad one or anything like that. It's really just all about awareness. And this is just a starting point, because you're going to go on from here and, kind of learn and do more with yours. So I'm going to leave that open, and we'll kind of see what we're looking like a little bit. Get this out the way. Sorry. All right. So first up is autocratic. When we talk about the autocratic leader, and let me know, hopefully this poll is not in your way. I don't know what you're able to see and what you're not, but hopefully the poll is not in your way if I leave it open. But when we talk about the autocratic leader, we're talking about someone who is the workplace dictator. If this is your style, it just means that you have more of a very strict and rigid style. You're probably someone who leads more by the book. You don't allow for a lot of outside the box thinking. There's not a lot of room for creativity. It's this way, and it's one way, and that's the way that everyone on your team is going to go. You're going to give very specific guidelines about how to get stuff done, and you're going to expect for the people on your team to adhere and follow this. Now, again, there's no right or wrong, right? There are some times where you might be in situations that call for certain leadership styles more so than others. And this is a part of growing in leadership, is knowing which type of situation calls for me to maybe be an autocratic leader. You may inherently have that leadership style, or it may be something that, maybe you work on a little bit. But the idea with the autocratic leader is that they're by the book. They're real strict by the book. They're going to make a lot of the decisions. They're not going to include a lot of opportunity to have input from everyone on the team. It is, they're making the decisions and this is the way that they're going to go. They're going to focus on the end result. Autocratics can really thrive if you're in a situation where you need consistent, predictable results. You need someone who is going to set the pace to get it done and not deviate. If you're an autocratic, that's your prime situation right there, right? That's exactly right. There are some times where that is the type of person that you need. So there's pros and cons for that. One, the pro, decision making or the decision process, it's usually not time consuming because you're not you're not asking people what their opinion is. You've made the decision, so it's less time consuming. It's more efficient, right? If it's used effectively, the autocratic leader creates clear guidelines. And sometimes you have a team where you just need clear guidelines. On the other hand, if employees don't feel that you trust them enough to get their input, then they might not trust you. So there could be some trust issues that kind of go back and forth there. They might not feel comfortable carrying out your vision if you didn't really care to kind of, get their input. And yes, I absolutely believe that you can have and be a mix of two. You probably could be a blend of a few of these, and there might be aspects of one that you do and aspects of another that you do that's more kind of predominant. So yeah, you could definitely have a blend of both of them. Cons to this, again, the whole thing about the trust issue, and again, it can be abused. If you're someone who makes decisions that impacts your team, but you didn't really check in with them, that's just something that you'll want to know, right? If you, for example, say, hey, I'm changing shifts instead of coming in, I'm changing shift hours. Instead of coming in at 5, I now need you to come in at 4. So instead of, 5 to 12, everyone's going to work 4 to whatever. Well, you didn't consult anybody, you didn't ask anyone, that can be kind of really seen as dictatorial. So that's just some pros and cons there for autocratic. Then there is the authoritative. The authoritative is the leader who kind of similar to autocratic, but the authoritative is going to be more diligent about trying to inspire people to get to do what they want. So instead of just telling them because I said so, you're going to try to, get them to do what you want, but inspire them along the way. This does allow for a little bit more of inspiration, but these are typically people who have a little bit more emotional intelligence. So it's not about just, sort of, again, shaking their finger and saying, do what I say, but it's more like, I'm going to try to inspire you to get you to do what I want. Still might not get your input, right? I still might not get your opinion, but you're going to try to motivate people to do it. So again, in a situation where you need clarity and clear direction, the authoritative leader might be good at that. It could be effective because you're trying to inspire people, you're providing direction and vision, but you can still come across as being a little bit overbearing if you're not careful. You have to kind of own up to your mistakes. When you're the one that's calling the shots and making the decisions, you got to be able to carry on your shoulders the possible failures that could go along with that as well. So that's the authoritative leader. Then we have the pace setter. And the pace setter is someone who is all about pushing their team members to run hard. They've got a goal in mind, and their whole goal is to meet whatever the goal is of that team or whatever the goal is of that project. They aren't afraid to kind of roll up their sleeves and to jump in and to do the work as well. They're going to lead by example, but these are your high energy people that are all about push, 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 push. They're going to set the bar high for performance. But they're also going to set the bar high for quality. So they're not going to try to sacrifice one for the other, but it is all about push, 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 meet the goal. And it's about the results with them, meeting the deadline. This is really good for high energy people. This is good sometimes when your team really needs that high level of engagement and you got to keep everybody kind of pumped and ready to go. So it's good for that when the team needs that. This is a leadership style that is obviously really effective at helping to meet goals and achieve results. All of that is good. But on the other hand, it can be high pressure. Like somebody like me, I would not do well under a pace setter because if you just come at me all the time with go, 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 push, 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 I'm going to burn out. I'm going to burn out and you're going to wear me out. So that's something that if you have that leadership style, right? And let's see here. Yeah, some pace setters, not a lot, right? Some pace setters there. It's just something to be mindful of. How are you going to maintain the energy without, making your employees or your team members feel complete burnout, right? It can just be very stressful. Mistakes can come easy because you're just going all the time. You got to pay attention to the details sometimes, right? So you don't want to negatively affect morale and motivation because you're just pushing everybody so hard. All right, up next is what it looks like most of us kind of fall into, and that is the democratic leadership. That kind of appears to be our number one here, the democratic style of leadership. As the name implies, this is all about shared leadership between managers and the team. This is the type of leadership style where you are encouraging your employees. This is the type where you are getting their input. You want their ideas. You want to know their opinions. You want to know what they know. You don't make a decision without everyone having the opportunity to voice their opinions or to voice their ideas about that. And for you, if you're the Democratic, or for us, I should say, part of the joy is in the process of dialoguing and discussing the ideas and getting input from everyone. You want buy-in. To you, buy-in is really, really important. You're still going to be the one that makes the final decision, but you're going to feel good knowing that you heard from everyone on the team. Pros and cons about this. Well, it's good that you value your employees' opinions and their thoughts. It comes with a high level of engagement, which a lot of people like. It can boost morale. It can boost retention overall. It helps with trust because your employees feel like, oh, you trust me enough to care about what I have to say. It can build trust among them, and it fosters creativity because everyone with all of their different backgrounds is having a say-so in this part of this decision-making process. But the other side, as you can imagine, is it can make actually coming up with the decision-making prolonged. It can be difficult. If you have to sit and listen to everyone's opinion, if you got to sit and take into consideration what everyone is saying, that could just really prolong the time. And then depending on their group dynamic, it may or might not work. You still have to look at who all is on this team. Maybe everyone is not in a position or comfortable enough to articulate what they feel and how they feel and to articulate their opinion, and that could frustrate other people, right? So these are all things you just kind of have to keep in mind. Moving on to coaching. This is one that when we talked about blends, that I was kind of a blend between, right? So when we're talking about coaching, imagine that you are a sports coach and you're trying to, for every individual player on whatever team you're coaching, you're trying to help them reach their goal. This is what the coaching leader looks like. They're all about trying to individually develop each person on the team. For them, then feedback is going to be a really, really big part of it. They are nurturing, they're motivational, they're there to help you individually. I think I saw my manager in here earlier. I don't know if she's still here or not. I don't know if she took this or not either, but I would say that she's a wonderful coach, right? She is an absolutely wonderful coach. She is someone who, even though we have a large team, we have a large instructor team within the School of Business that she has to oversee. When you meet with her for one-on-ones, you get the feeling that you are the only person on her team that she really cares about. And I'm sure if you polled us, we would all feel like, I'm her favorite. No, I'm her favorite. That is the sign of a good coach. Okay, Kimberly, see, you're crossing boards here, right? Soccer, from soccer to the professional life, you got coaching covered, right? So that's what the coach is all about. Good things. Let's see, I will try to post it here for you if you need to retake that. The good thing with coaching is that your employees are going to feel very encouraged. This is going to boost team morale. The individualized attention that the coach is able to give benefits the individual, but when that individual feels benefited, it benefits the overall team. And that benefits the overall organization when you have this very well-functioning team, right? The cons, on the other hand, is that I mean it can be time consuming because you're so concerned with the individual and their needs. First of all, you have to be patient. You have to have a lot of patience to deal with a lot of people and all their individualities, right? And if you're not careful, coaches, you could lose the sight of whatever the overall picture is. So again, it's just something that you want to keep in mind, right? Because if what's really driving you is working with that individual one on one and encouraging them and keeping them and developing them as a leader, that's that's good. But you still have this project over here y'all have to finish, right? You still have this goal over here that you have to meet. So just something to keep in mind. Transformational, okay, that came up a little bit. First when I was looking at it, it was kind of low, pretty low ranking there, but it's come up a little bit. So with transformational, these are also kind of known as more like visionary leaders. This is what some people might consider like the gold star is leadership. This is where people kind of really feel like, okay, this is kind of the leader you want, right? It's a humane approach to leading. This is a leader who is able to focus on the big picture. They're able to focus on whatever the goal is, whatever the outcome needs to be, but they're doing so in a way that really inspires and motivates the team as a whole. This leader is a leader who uses positive reinforcement. They're going to have a high level of empathy for the people on the team. They're really engaged in emotional intelligence, but they are transforming the people on their team. They're leading and encouraging them. They're empowering the team members to really step out of their comfort zone. They're good at inspiring people, not just for the sake of inspiration, but inspiring them and helping to connect sort of the company's overall values with them individually, right? Pros and cons of this, it's not coercive. It's real motivational. It's real inspirational. Because you're focusing on the future vision of the company, this leads to growth of the company, right? This can really help to catalyze the overall company growth because you've got people who you're connecting with the company values. These are people who, when you work up under a transformational leader, you yourself just really feel connected to the company. Cons to this, though, the leader, because they're focusing on sort of the long term and meeting the goals and stuff there, it might be easy for them to miss stuff in the short term. It might be easy for them to miss certain details that they really should be focusing on. And because you are kind of focused on the company's overall goals and helping your employees get there, you might also miss the individual levels and feedback that they need. Okay. And then the final one is the laissez-faire type, and that is sort of as the name implies. That's real hands-off, right? This is the person who probably doesn't like to be micromanaged. I don't really like to be micromanaged either, right? Not too many people do. But this is the delegative style, right? This is the exact opposite of the autocratic leader. This is the person who really just empowers the team. They really kind of taking their hands off. They offer guidance, but it's real minimal. It's real minimal. They just allow the employees to figure it out, problem solve on their own. They just really give a lot of power to the team. They leave the door open for the team to kind of come talk to them, but otherwise they just kind of let them do their own thing, right? So it's like the door is open if you need me. Otherwise, you might not see me a whole lot. And so, how much support is offered and when it's offered, that depends on the leader and kind of what they're doing. But if it's a good laissez-faire leader, this is going to be someone who's still going to define the limits and the expectations, but they're going to know when to pull the reins in. They're going to know when they need to step in. They're going to know when they need to take some reins back here. They're not just going to leave it as a complete free-for-all. Good pros to this. One, it's empowering. Your employees are going to feel empowered when you let them lead. This allows for people who are wanting to come up in leadership, gives them an opportunity to shine as well. Cons for this, though, it can be real easy for disagreements to arise among people within the team. This isn't an effective way to lead if you know that you don't have the right team for it. You have to have a team that's kind of an already well-oiled machine. So definitely you will want to, just make sure that that's appropriate, right? And then there's other leadership styles. We won't get into all of these. I'll definitely send you this presentation if you like, but these are just some others that maybe you've seen or have come across. So not an exhaustive list. There's all kinds of other types of leadership styles that are out there that you might sort of engage with and see, and you can kind of see that. But just to kind of wrap us up here, I definitely want you to kind of know how you can, now that you know this about yourself, work on improving this. Where do you go from here? Once you kind of know your style, you know where you're, how can you then grow that? So in conclusion, these are just sort of my final tips for how you develop this even more after today. First, know yourself. You know your leadership style now. Know other things about you. Do you like to delegate authority? Do you prefer to be the one in charge? Are you somewhere in between? You can ask people for your help. You can take other assessments, but no matter what, be you. You could be walking into a position where you are taking on the leadership role of filling someone else's shoes who's maybe vacated that role. You can still only be you, right? Even if that was a well-loved leader, you have to be authentically you. Your team and other people around you, they're going to know. They're going to know when you're not being you. So you, be authentically you. So know yourself. But it's not just enough to know yourself. You also have to know your team, know the employees, the people that you're working with. You might have to adapt to the team that you're on or the team that you're leading. You might have to know when certain circumstances call for certain leadership styles. So know when you need to be delegative, know when you need to be hands off, know when you need to be autocratic, right? All of this is going to come from when you know your team. What leadership style calls for or is going to be best used in what sort of situation, right? And then finally, know the other leadership styles, right? It's not enough for you just to kind of advance in yours. Know the other leadership styles as well. Think about what skill sets you might need to develop in order to be more diverse in your leadership style capacities as well. All right. So we are definitely over time. So thank you for indulging me as we kind of went over time. I am definitely going to go back kind of in the chat and take a look at that because I would love to connect with you all. But in closing, go be great, y'all. That's it. That is the final word. Go be great. I know that you're going to be empowered and that you will then empower other women. So I look forward to one day saying, oh, I know them. They went to WGU and I was a part of them or, whatever. I used to teach them, right? Whatever the case may be, right? So thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I know it was late for some of us. So I appreciate your time here. And I know you're going to be great. I know you're going to be great, great leaders. All right. Thank you. And I hope y'all have a wonderful, wonderful evening.
Thank you and good night, everyone.